Hey everybody, Star 6 Wars 1 here, and welcome to the next part of the Best of Anime. For this one, we look at the 13 best character casts in anime. Now, like the previous Best of Anime video, this is in no particular order. However, unlike last time, I'm going to add the addition of my favorite character casts in all of anime, as well as what I consider the best character casts in anime. Two more things I want to note before we begin. One is about who I will be tagging and how at least we'll have tags work. When I tag someone in these video series, I will be tagging them for the entire project to save time for me continuously tagging the same people for the remaining 3 videos I have planned for the Best of Anime. Now, just because I tag you doesn't mean you have to do it. I made this project with the intent of seeing what other people consider the best of anime has to offer, as well as myself. If you say you're too busy to do it or just don't want to do it, then just let me know. I'm perfectly fine if you don't. Now that aside, I'd like to tag HS Media Nerd, JC Green, Mr. Reckless Penguin, The Otaku Chick, and Black Doom 900, and anyone else that may want to join in later. Also, before we begin, I'd like to give 2 honorable mentions for character casts that didn't quite make my cut. The first is Steins Gate. Now, I originally did plan to have this on my list. However, after seeing other anime, since I originally started the Best of Anime, I started to question how good the entire cast is, so because of that, I decided to leave it out for this list, but I still wanted to give Steins Gate at least an honorable mention. The other honorable mention is Wolf's Rain. If I was deciding this on just side characters, I would have included it. However, the main cast is a bit too weak for me to consider it for the best character cast in anime. It's still a great anime with some great side characters, but it didn't just make the cut. A final note before we begin, there will be spoilers for my entries in the video, just to give a warning. Now with that said, let's begin. Now, out of all of the entries here, Hunter x Hunter is the only one I have yet to finish. However, with what I have seen of it, it earned a spot here. It does a great job at characterizing both main and side characters. Their interactions are just awesome to watch, and the main cast is really likable. Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, Killua, Hisoka, and more are why I like this cast and think they are one of the anime's best. Probably the only sports anime of the list, Kuroko no Basket has a great character cast full of likable characters, great characterization, great development, enjoyable as heck, and is just an awesome cast to watch. My favorite characters are Kagami, Kiriko himself, Amane, who is probably my favorite character of the bunch. In fact, all the generation of Miracles is great. Teppei, and in fact, all of Saren are also a bunch of great characters. Though I really like the cast in general. They aren't the most complex characters, but they are very understandable and likable cast of characters. Saren feels like a real team, and you see how they grow both as people and a team. The other teams have this as well and are understandable and rather likable. They feel like people you know by the end of the anime. They are truly amazing characters and one of my particular favorite casts of characters in general. Now, when it comes to Baccano's cast of characters, I absolutely love them. They're all likable, they have great characterization, some have great development as well. All of them have a great amount of screen time to show what they are like, both side and main characters, and they are all memorable to boot. If I'm gonna be honest, a lot of the reason Baccano got an entry here is because of how much I enjoy these characters. Isaac and Miria, Lad Russo, Clary, Jacuzzi, Firo, Maiza, the list goes on. I just love this cast in general. When it comes to NHK's characters, all of them are heavily flawed individuals with their own problems, ranging from being a Higekimori, to being socially awkward, to getting addicted to various things, to think that you're in a conspiracy, the list goes on. I'm the first to admit it's not the easiest to like the characters at times, and they're all messed up people, even if it's not apparent at first. However, what makes them one of the best character casts in anime is that they feel human and for many feel very relatable. I think most people can at least relate a little to the cast, especially if you've seen or done some of the stuff they have, or even if you haven't, they may relate to your own darker moments in life. That's why I think they're a great character cast myself. When it comes to Cowboy Bebop's characters, I find them to be really fascinating. We have Spike and his past and his laid-back personality, Jet and his stern attitude being pretty much the voice of reason for the group, Faye and her femme fatale personality and admittedly very sad backstory, and Ed and her eccentric personality. On top of that, they interact with each other is one of the absolute highlights of the anime. I love the characterization in Cowboy Bebop, and I love how they work with each other's personalities to make a great character cast. With Tokyo Godfather's characters, one of the main reasons they are here is how different the main characters are from normal anime. I mean, when do you see 3 homeless people be our protagonists in anime? Not very often, to be honest. Tokyo Godfathers is one of the exceptions to this. We have Miyuki, Jin, and Hana, who are all homeless for one reason or another. Also, Hana is a transvestite and is played as just a facet of her character on top of being homeless along with Jin and Miyuki. They're some of the most unique casts of characters I've seen in anime, as no other anime that I have seen has these characters. On top of that, they are also really well characterized of showing their quirks and strengths. Honestly, I think that they are one of the not only unique, but best character casts in anime. Much like NHK's cast, Neon Genesis Evangelion's cast are heavily flawed individuals. Almost all of them suffer from Hedgehog's dilemma, though how much depends on the character, and a whole set of other problems. When I first saw the anime, I despised most of the characters, and many people still do, and I do get why. At first glance, a lot of them seemed like very weak characters, or rather unlikable characters. However, for me at least, that changed when I saw their complexity instead of just face value. In this regard, they are some of the more human characters in anime. They are all very complex in their own way, and that's what I like about them. When it came to Berserk's characters, I was worried about putting it on here, as the side characters, while have great characterization in my opinion, they aren't always the most interesting characters, and while Kasuka's a really good character, she isn't the best. However, when I consider Guts and Griffith, I just couldn't ignore it. Griffith may be one of the most interesting characters in anime by what he does, how he thinks, and the lengths he's willing to go to accomplish his goals. However, so is Guts. Guts is an equally interesting character with what he does, how he thinks, and how understandable he is. Honestly, if for only those two, Berserk would get an entry, but thankfully, all of the cast is good as well. When starting the best of anime and coming up with entries for the best of anime character casts, Gurren Lagann's cast was one of my first choices. I find them memorable, I think they are well characterized, are given great development as this anime goes along, especially the main character, and are some of the most enjoyable cast of characters I've seen in anime. At one point, I consider Gurren Lagann's cast of characters to be my favorite characters in all of anime. Not anymore, of course, but it did at one point. And they are still one of my personal favorite casts of characters in anime. Characters like Simone, Kamina, Yoko, Nia, Kitan, Viral, Liron, and more just make this cast enjoyable to watch and a personal favorite of mine. Now this is a bit of a late entry on my list as I only finished it some time ago. However, the characters were so good I couldn't ignore them in the slightest, so here we are. Paranoia Agent has some of the most human characters I've seen. The characters are all messed up people with their own struggles and problems. Something I also liked was that all the characters got a good amount of screen time to show what they were like and had amazing characterization throughout. There was some pretty good development from the cast as well. They feel like people and not just characters. Heck, they impressed me so much that despite only seeing it recently, I had to include it here. They blew away all of my expectations out the water. I'm very impressed with how good the characters in Paranoia Agent are. After watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I had very little doubt it would end up here. The only question was which arc's characters would end up here. With Phantom Blood, you got a great villain and good rest of the characters from that arc, though lacking in the side characters. With Battle Tendency, you have an all-around likable cast with a great main character, as well as great main cast in general. Then you've got Stardust Crusaders' main characters, all getting a huge amount of screen time, and characterization with character development on the side, though some of the villains could have been better, honestly, though others were great like the main cast. So, which of the arcs am I going with? Well, honestly, I'm gonna have to go with Battle Tendencies. Very likable and interesting cast, as they had a much bigger impact on me than all of the arcs. However, I'm also going with Stardust Crusaders' character cast, as I feel they are also worth mentioning along with Battle Tendencies characters. Both arcs have great main characters, both arcs have great characterization, even on characters that don't appear that long. Both have development for the respective casts, and both casts are very likable. Though it does take Stardust a bit longer to see it than Battle Tendency. Honestly, I couldn't choose between the two arcs which had the better character cast, as both are amazing in their own right. Okay, all of you saw this coming. Let's face it, I've talked about FMA's characters a lot before, and have given them high praise on both anime. However, as to which I consider the better of the two, it would be FMA 2003. Why is this? Well, for starters, it has a more interesting Ed. He struggles more in 03 than I feel he does in Brotherhood. Not to say Brotherhood's doesn't, but honestly, Ed in Brotherhood had very strong morals, and was definitely more, yeah, I'm an actual hero. While 03's Ed struggled with what was right and wrong for him and his brother, and for me, that made Ed much stronger. Even that aside, there's so many great characters. Roy, Al, the aforementioned Ed, Winry, Alex Louise Armstrong, Mace Hughes, the Homunculi, Risa, and so many more for what I consider the best character cast in all of anime. However, I do have one more character cast to talk about. My favorite character cast in all of anime. Yes, FMA does not have my favorite character cast, though it would be one of my runners-up. No, Trigun has my favorite character cast in all of anime. It has my favorite anime character in Vash the Stampede, it has my favorite anime villain in Legato Blue Summers, and it has a great supporting cast in Wolfwood, Meryl, Millie, hell, even Knives. I love Trigun's cast of characters, be they one-episode characters or part of the main cast. Vash, as I said, is my favorite anime character of all time. He can be goofy, caring, complex, thoughtful, smart, and so much more else in just personality, not to mention what he goes through in the series and his past. Even him aside, I love the characters in Trigun, and they are without a doubt my favorite cast of characters in anime. Anyways, that's all from me. This has been Star 6 Wars 1, and I'll see you next time.